You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. We are only a day or so away from the draft, Andy. A lot of news to cover around that. Want to remind people that you can join NBA draft coach Chad Ford, Locked On NBA draft host Rafael Barlow, and Locked On NBA host John Corrales live this year, covering the NBA draft. It's Locked On NBA Draft 2021, brought to you by Built Bar. Get local expert analysis on each pick, locals like us. Follow Locked On NBA on YouTube today. Watch our live coverage on Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific. I want to let you guys know, too, on Thursday's show, Andy and I, will be previewing the draft with Mike Garcia. You know him as Canyon Driver on Twitter. He is a great guy for the draft, knows these prospects inside and out. So that'll be our show for Thursday, Andy. We'll talk a little bit about the draft today, but we've got not only a trade rumor, Andy, but a trade rumor and a confirmation of the rumor and a denial of the trade. No, you cannot have this thing that we are asking for.
Plus, changes afoot with the Lakers coaching staff. So there are actual wheels turning, whether imagined or rooted in reality with this team right now. So it's very exciting.
They're here. So let's start with, we'll get to the coaching stuff probably in the next segment, but let's start with this. It was Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype, who reported that the Lakers offered the 22nd pick and Kyle Kuzma to Indiana for TJ Warren and the 13th pick, I believe. That was confirmed by Jay Michael at the Indy Star, and the Pacers said no.
Yes, according to Jay Michael, Michael Scotto's report was accurate. TJ Warren is healthy, so they declined Kuz. Lakers have been hustling to jump into the lottery to get ahead of the Wizards.
Two parts about this, because the moving up in the draft aspect of this is really interesting as well. But let's start first with just the trade itself. Kyle Kuzma and the 22nd pick for TJ Warren and the 13th pick.
Yeah, you're damn right, Indiana. Turn that down. They would be giving up the better pick.
Yes.
Maybe the better player in Warren. Definitely the better scorer.
If TJ Warren is healthy, yes, he's a better player.
He's definitely a better scorer, and he has a definitively shorter contract. He's done in 2022, as opposed to Kuzma, who has at least 2 more seasons under contract. So in terms of the flexibility that the Lakers and really all teams covet, unless you're talking about star players, they get the better end of that part of it. Rob Pelinka might as well have just told Kevin Pritchard, the president of basketball operations for the Pacers, you got 15 minutes to decide, you effing hillbilly. Yeah, whatever. Call back. Go marry your cousin while you're at it. Seriously, it's that insulting of an offer.
It feels to me like it's the kind of trade offer that you crowdsource on Lakers Twitter. You go to people and you ask them, because that's the sort of thing as you say, I maybe some people disagree. I think TJ Warren is a better player than Kuz. Certainly
he's definitely a better scorer.
He's a better scorer. And if that's what you want, it's not like he's even significantly older than Kuz either. He's 28 years old, about to be 28
He's coming off
old.
a foot issue. So, that could be some, I guess, concern for the Pacers.
Only played 4 games last season.
Right, according to Jay Michael, he is healthy right now. But then you start including the 22nd pick for the 13th, as if the Pacers need to sweeten TJ Warren in order to make this worth it for the Lakers. We both have been really complimentary the last couple seasons of Kuzma and the work that he's done to really be a team-centric guy. And we've actually said that a lot of the down opinions of him, or the perception of him, has actually not really been accurate in terms of what he's done for this team.
Good player. F
out of here, man. Come on.
No, I'm not buying that. And then, it's one of these things where, if you first of all, hey, kudos to Rob for asking. The answer is no if you don't ask. What if they were like, you know what, that we love Kuz and we really want to move down in the draft. This is perfect for us.
Yeah.
I mean,
sometimes the answer is a middle finger.
That's true. Apparently, it was certainly a polite no. It is in the vein because I know a couple people on Twitter ask because I saw that rumored deal of Kuz in the 22nd for Joe Ingles, and whether or not Utah could get better value for Ingles than that, I'm not sure. A first round pick is very valuable, and Kuzma is a decent player. You can at least look at that even if you think it's sort of lopsided and the Lakers get the better player, which they would. Utah is reportedly not going to sign all of those guys. They have Bogdanovich. They have, so you add a cost-controlled young player.
That's a deal that makes sense on both sides.
It could. And so in theory, at least the trading TJ Warren part for Kuz kind of fits there because if you
straight up, absolutely
right. If you don't think you're gonna sign Warren after next year, all that other stuff you can make. It's the part where you actually have to add draft sweetener.
Yeah.
I think that really puts this one over the edge. I would probably say no if I were Indiana. Maybe I might say no to Warren and for Warren for Kuz in the 22nd, but I'd think about it. But I when you make me give up the pick too, that's a bridge too far. Let's talk about the idea that they're moving up because reportedly it is in an effort to get the very fast rising Chris Duarte, the guard from Oregon, who we previewed as part of our draft previews here on Locked On Lakers, not the old one, Locked On Lakers. And we'll talk about him with Mike Garcia on Thursday's show as well.
And people should go back and listen to our scouting report of Chris Duarte in order to better prepare yourself for the interview with Mike Garcia plus clicks.
Yes, both of those things. You don't even have to listen; just click on it. But
listen.
Listen to.
We'd prefer you listen. I mean, I'm not going to discourage
you, but you remember our motto when we had our book out, which was, "You don't have to read the book, but we would like you to buy it."
Yeah, but the difference is though, the book was an actual undertaking, like a scouting report with Chris Duarte, a podcast that you can put on 1.5 speed, like. Come on, you deadbeat! Listen to the damn thing.
Okay, that's fair.
You want to listen to our book on double speed? I mean, were that an option then? I would have said more people. You know what? Listen to our book.
Our book was not going to be put on audio. Who the hell was going to invest in the audio book? Anyway, all right.
Certainly not after they saw the original sales of the book.
God, no.
Fishing on the Edge. If you're interested in the life of. Yeah, it actually is a good book. If you're interested in bass fishing or just sort of that world, and the guy who was at the time the Dennis Rodman of professional bass fishing, if that's your thing, you could do worse.
Yeah, it's true. All right, so it was the best book of that genre of that year.
Yeah, crowded genre, and we owned it. Cream always rises to the top.
All right, but the idea that let's talk about this next because the idea that the Lakers will be moving up in the draft is kind of fascinating to me, and the idea that they would be trying to move up specifically for Duarte also is meaningful. We'll do that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar ever. Bars covered in 100% chocolate. They are soft, easy to chew. They're healthy. They're great for a health conscious guy, whether you're trying to lose or maintain weight, but you still want to have a snack that's awesome. They're low calorie, they're low sugar, they're high protein, high fiber. They're great for keto diets. And they, as always, taste awesome. You've got original flavors like raspberry, coconut almond, salted caramel, banana bread, new flavors like cherry barcia, lemon almond cheesecake, cookies and cream. They're just perfect for somebody like me who likes cool taste combinations and does not want to get bored in between meals looking for something. So again, go to BuiltBar.com, use the promo code LOCKED15. You get 15% off your first order. Again, the promo code LOCKED15, 15% off at BuiltBar.com.
All right. So while you were doing that, Andy, I went back and looked up Fishing on the Edge on Amazon.com. Mm-hmm. First of all, let me say 161 ratings. almost all of them it gets 4.5 out of 5 stars. 76% are 5-star reviews. The extra 10% are 4 stars. Do you want to guess when the most recent review was? I was joking that like nobody had found this thing in 100 years. The two most recent reviews, April 1st, 2021.
Really?
5 stars. Good book. I haven't finished a book in 20 years, but this one I did. You're welcome, Leslie. Gulliver. Wow. Gulliver on January 9th, 2021, as the pandemic was raging. 5 stars. Excellent book. Good read.
That is awesome. That's really cool. Again, the book was good. The book was good. It was just
not a reader.
Just no.
Or maybe every book that maybe she reads a different book every week and they're just shitty.
Yeah, that's true.
Leslie could be a man, by the way. I don't know this Leslie person. And this Leslie finally found a book that passed the bar.
There you go. All right.
I actually feel really good about myself now.
Happy to be a part of bringing back reading to this nation.
Oh, and here I was ready to make a joke at my own expense. I shouldn't do that. All right. So Chris Duarte is reportedly was the target of the Lakers trying to move up in that farcical TJ Warren offer that they made Indiana. Great idea for the Lakers, but I think this to me is interesting because it is if it is true that is who they would want to draft with that pick. It says a lot about what they're thinking for next year, because the appeal of Duarte is A, he can shoot, but B, he is widely considered, Andy, to be the most NBA ready guy that you're going to get who isn't like Cade Cunningham, like outside the lottery, a prospect who can come in and on a really good team and play a role for you right away. That's Duarte. So for the Lakers to try to be jumping up to get him, even if it doesn't work, it's still meaningful.
Yeah, and that was the consensus we got during our time scouting Chris Duarte, and he reminds me a lot, and this is something I've talked about recently when it comes to the Lakers and the success they've had in recent years, drafting in the 20s, sometimes at 30 or maybe into the second round. Mm-hmm. They've done a really good job looking for established players with less upside and a higher floor, and finding success that way, as opposed to looking for like a diamond in the rough that slips somewhere between 15 and 30. They've tended to go after 3 to 4 year players in college, whether you're talking about Josh Hart, Larry Nance Jr., Kyle Kuzma, even Jordan Clarkson into the second round. And they specifically targeted him. They bought the pick in order to get his rights. Right. Mo Wagner is an example.
They bought the pick and slid into his DMs.
And yep, I learned it from watching you, Dad. But it hasn't always hit. Mo Wagner was a 20s that didn't quite work out. But by and large, that has been their formula. I think it's worked really well. And rather than focusing on who the player could be if everything goes best case scenario, like bestest case, I think they tend to focus on who the player could be if everything goes basically to expectations, maybe slightly higher, but definitely not lower. And Chris Duarte feels like that kind of guy.
Yeah, let me read this, because we got this email from Trevor V at kamenetskyBrothers@gmail.com, which is another way to get a hold of us for the mailbag segments. At Cam Brothers is one. The show page on iTunes, leave a 5-star review there. We'll read your stuff, and you can even get a hold of us on YouTube. We are both trying to be very conscientious about answering questions that people leave there on the different videos. So do it that way. But this from Trevor V basically summarized, he agreed with us that the Lakers should draft a more seasoned player, and and got to Duarte and agreed. But then he was thinking, drafting someone a year younger gives you a chance to hit high. Then a year or two from now, when the next superstar demands a trade, the Lakers have 2 players to offer, plus their future picks not controlled by New Orleans, who are much closer to that current date. So meaning if you go for upside, you're not winning something now, but you have a better asset that you can use to trade. And I think the response that I have to that, and I think the reason, Andy, and thank you, Trevor, for sending the email. I think the reason the Lakers do it the way they do, especially now, is because the problem with drafting a diamond in the rough is that you can't play them. And so, THT, for example, got some of his playing time, and still, by the way, has not been a high-end sort of 20-minute a night guy in the NBA yet. We love the potential, but it's not like he's a key rotation member yet. If you have a guy who needs that kind of development on a really good team with championship aspirations, it's almost impossible to find him the amount of playing time that they need to develop that talent, but also to show people that the guy can play. And so it's hard, I think, to raise the value of that asset. And so I think I love the thought process from Trevor there. But I think that's the flaw in the logic of trying to go for that diamond as a mechanism for extra trade value. Because 2 or 3 years down the road, if the guy isn't playing, most people have forgotten about that potential.
Yeah, I mean, you have to basically be looking for a guy who's both ready and high upside, but somehow managed to fall to like 22, which, I mean, I suppose there's a chance that a lot of teams around the league just flat out miss on a guy in terms of what they can do now and 3 or 4 years from now, but I think it's rare to find that guy in the 20s that you could really reasonably look at and go, how the hell did that many people miss? I'm not saying it's impossible, but
no, but like it's not just in the sense of like you look up 5 years from now and you say, wow, that guy was, Nikola Jokic, you got him at, what was it, 40 or something, 42, whatever it was. But like where you look at him in November, the year after they were drafted, and go, how did 22 teams not do that? So no, I completely agree with you there. And then the other half of this that I think is also interesting, Andy, is that there are also reports, and I guess some people could think they are conflicting. I'm interested in your opinion on this, that the Lakers are interested in dropping out of the first round, trading out, getting some equity that they can use going forward, and getting maybe a couple second round picks that they can use this year, whatever it might be. I'm wondering if you see those two things, the idea that you would trade up to get Duarte or trade down out of the first round entirely, to be in conflict with each other. Because I don't.
Not necessarily, because I mean, there's always a chance that they could be trading up because they're trying to get a pick that's more appealing, packaging it with somebody else for a trade.
Sure, that's true.
There's always the chance that moving up has nothing to do with the player they want. It has to do with what they're trying to
Somebody's
create.
Saying, if you can get us to 13, we will happily do trade X, Y, and Z.
Exactly. I don't think it necessarily speaks to anything conflicting. I think it speaks to the idea of, this is who we want. These are 2 or 3 guys that we want at 22. If we don't think we can get them, we're not really interested in anybody in the first round, and we're not interested in committing the salary to somebody in the first round. I think it ultimately
committing the roster space, all of that stuff.
It ultimately just speaks to flexibility. I don't think it's conflicting at all. I mean, especially for a team like the Lakers that's built to win right now. Like, it's always a little bit fluid what you would do with a first round pick anyway. In that situation.
The reason I didn't even ask you this before we started. A lot, pull the curtain back, Andy. We actually do prep for this show, and we'll talk through topics and this whatever. I didn't ask you this one because I wanted to hear. I wanted to see if you had the same thought, and I do too. To me, again, like I said in before, moving up to say we want Duarte, if that's what it is, says we want a guy who can come in and help us today. And the idea that you would trade out basically says what you were saying. If we can't find that person to help us today, we're not gonna do it. It reinforces the idea that they are really looking for help to win now. They cannot
afford a roster spot they cannot afford a roster spot with that type of capital that can't play right now. It's one thing to have a second rounder maybe on your roster that you can't play right away. There's only so much investment that goes into that.
Takes the Costa spot, traveling back and forth between the G League and that's fine.
But it's another thing, I think, to have a first rounder with this team that can't play. That to me feels like you didn't use it more proactively with more immediacy in any direction.
Right. And it tells me that just like, they are putting a premium on winning now, that their trades that they make will be trades that might, if they have to hedge in one direction or the other, are going to push much more towards this year, I guess maybe next year, and worry less about 2 or 3 years down the road, whatever it might be. And I think that is exactly where they should be, is pressing whatever advantage they have now while LeBron is as young as he's ever going to be, while AD is as young and, he's already kind of banged up and terrifies the crap out of us every time he does anything. That's not going to get better like over time. So, press this stuff now. Kawhi Leonard's hurt next year. Jamal Murray is hurt next year. There is an opening. It's not going to get any easier. So, 100% agree with philosophically what I think, at least if you want to read some tea leaves, some of the rumors of the last 24 hours indicate. Hard news though, Andy, coming out of the Lakers coaching staff. Lionel Hollins, he's not retiring, but he's not here anymore. We'll talk about that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by rockauto.com. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models out there, it is impossible to stock all the parts you would need in a traditional chain storefront. And who cares? Because why would you spend 30%, 50%, 100% more for the exact same auto parts at a chain store or a new car dealership, dummy, when you could get it for far less at rockauto.com? For example, a Honda Odyssey fuel pump, $353.
It's a Honda car. I understand. I drive one.
But it's $353 from a chain store on average. $216 from Rock Auto. That means whatever chain store it is, they're ripping you off, dummy. But that doesn't happen at rockauto.com because they're a family business. They've been serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. So whether it's for your classic or a daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks. It's delivered directly to your door. So go to rockauto.com right now. See everything that's available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
She hasn't come up with a better way for me to get like the kids around, all three of them and all that kind of stuff, from place to place or whatever. But I tell you what, my wife does not like letting me out of the house without her when I'm driving that Honda Odyssey, because the ladies notice.
Oh yeah,
it's a hot car.
Mm-hmm.
In all seriousness, I do love
it. It used to have an unrepeatable nickname.
Did it?
No.
Okay.
No.
I didn't get it.
I
don't get it. Whoosh.
It did not.
Okay. Anyway, you can explain that joke to me after the show's over. So news from El Segundo on Tuesday. This from Jovan Buha at The Athletic. Lionel Hollins will no longer be a member of Frank Vogel's staff. Reportedly could not come to an agreement on contract basically for next year. He was not under contract, and the Lakers and Hollins couldn't find the right number. So he is going to be moving on. You remember earlier in the summer, this certainly has more context now, Andy. Hollins did interview for a lead assistant role with Chauncey Billups in Portland. This might be related to that in some way in terms of thinking he might not be long for LA. So,
yeah, and he actually spoke with Kyle Goon from the Southern California News Group, said he's open to coaching again in the right opportunity, enjoyed his 2 years in Los Angeles with Frank Vogel's staff. So if nothing else, Lionel Hollins does not seem to be interested in calling it a career coaching wise.
And I always wonder when these things come up. I mean, look, coaching changes are completely normal. But the Lakers, for example, didn't renew the contract of Kobe Carl with the South Bay Lakers. Why? I have no idea. But they didn't, for whatever it is that they want to do down there, and they run a good G League team. They want something else, and that's fine. Jason Kidd left, and they brought in Fizdale. Gary St. John, the scout, went with Kidd to Dallas. And so like stuff happens, like these things move. The only times I ever get nervous, and this is not based on anything hard, it's just whenever you start seeing something that could be interpreted as cost cutting at a time where the Lakers are in a position where they might have to spend a bleep ton of money to keep a roster together that they want. At the very least, it makes me pause and think for 30 seconds, or maybe even 3 or 5 or 10. The thought crossed my mind that, geez, I hope money isn't sort of the big hang up here in any way other than just, we don't think Lionel Hollins is valuable enough for the extra whatever it is that I guess he wanted that the Lakers weren't willing to give him.
In fairness, the Lakers did blow through a lot of allotted coaching budget over the years during that period where they were paying 2 to 3 head coaches at once.
I think they're still paying Randy Fund. I mean,
right. So, I mean, like that period of like Mike Brown, Mike D'Antoni, Byron Scott, Luke, sort of all bleeding into each other. That did eat up a big chunk of the petty cash towards the coaching budget. So you are correct. You hope that money doesn't stand in the way in terms of getting whatever you think is the very best of the best. And I'm not going to pretend whether or not I know that is Lionel Hollins.
Oh, no, I have no idea about any of this stuff.
No, I mean, Lionel Hollins.
I say these things because it is now something that is on my mind. Like when you talk about bringing in Russell Westbrook and signing, re-signing Caruso, re-signing THT, but like the luxury tax bill on that is huge. And so potentially at least. And so, yeah, like you just start wondering, what does that mean on the margins? You and I were around.
Well, I mean,
when they were spending a lot of money on salaries and this and that, and they would do things, they'd sell off picks or stop with the carving station for the media.
Look, even during the period of
that was terrible.
Dr. Buss was renowned, rightly, for being willing to spend a lot of money to put together winning teams. But like you said, at the same time, like, they moved, for example, Vlad Radmanovich, and some of that had to do with, the Radmanovich nature of Vlad Radmanovich and all the things, yes, and all the things that came with Vlad Rad. But it was also a cost-cutting move. When they swapped him for Adam Morrison, and as it turned out, Shannon Brown, an incredible throw-in. And Shannon ended up a rotation guy for those 2 championship teams in 2009, 2010. But that was not the immediate goal. The immediate goal was dumping Vlad Rad's salary.
Right, but then they re-signed Shannon Brown and took away the carving station. So you saw how that goes. And I did not eat nearly as well in media. The other half of this, in the media room, the other half of this, though, reported by Mark Stein, is he officially gone with the New York Times and just doing his Substack, and which you should subscribe to?
He is, yes.
Is great. The immediate replacement as a front row assistant, guy sitting on the front of the bench, is going to be Mike Penberthy. They're just going to bump him up. So in terms of a coaching search, it doesn't look like there's going to be at least right away, David Fizdale type thing where you're replacing Jason Kidd with another lead type assistant with head coaching. Maybe they fill that spot with him at some point, but at least right now it looks like Penberthy is going to be promoted. I find that I don't know. I don't know what Penberthy doesn't do. He's a good coach, bad coach, or whatever. I know people think of him as like a shooter.
He's been a shooting coach. He has been a shooting coach in this. He's been Anthony Davis's shooting coach in New Orleans.
If I was the shooting coach of the Lakers, even if that was my job, I would deny it.
I actually have been wondering if this wasn't so much a promotion for Penberthy as it was just alleviating him of those responsibilities as a shooting coach without hurting his feelings. I mean, Vogel's an extremely nice guy.
I would tell everybody Jason Kidd was the shooting coach.
Oh, God,
I mean, like Kidd. Yeah, no, Kidd was
or Hollins
for that. No, that was Lionel. Lionel was responsible for all the shooting.
That old bad man. We tried to tell him it wasn't working, but you know
working,
how old people get. They don't listen.
Stubborn, set in his ways. He had trouble getting past the whole no belts on the shorts thing, and then
kept trying to talk to him. He said, "Look, man, it's 4:00. Time for dinner."
All right, so we'll see what happens. This is not the end of that conversation, but and then certainly the Lakers could make more adjustments to the staff. But I thought, just stuff to watch that they promoted somebody quickly to reportedly will promote somebody quickly.
Fizdale is a pretty notable addition in terms of replacing Kidd. I mean, Fizdale is a very, very high profile guy to import. So whatever comes after Hollins' departure, if anything, in terms of another external addition, I don't think there's necessarily too much to read into it, just because, again, Fizdale represents a lot of help.
I'm not even sure they need, quote unquote, need it. Like, you don't need Terry Stotts. I mean, but it does, we spent a lot of time we spent a lot of time talking about what kind of offensive coach they could bring. Like Penberthy, good offensive mind, bad off. Again, I don't really know enough to know. But I do know he was there last year when the offense was problematic.
Yeah,
And
if you can find a deal to be made with Terry Stotts, I'd do it.
Fine with me,
but
it's not, again, not my money, and I am all for more smart. I remember when the Dodgers, Andy, had 73 former general managers on the payroll. More the merrier. If you're willing to deal with it, it is fine with me. All right, so please sign up and subscribe for the Locked On Lakers YouTube channel if you haven't. Thank you to everybody who has.
Yes.
The channel is growing super fast. We really appreciate
just reach 1,000 subscribers, which is a very big deal.
It's a big really deal, big deal.
It's
happened really quick. You guys have helped us do that in like 3 weeks. So let's keep it going. The more we do there, the bigger it gets, the more we can do. Mike Garcia tomorrow to preview the draft. And then, of course, after the draft, we'll be doing stuff on the aforementioned YouTube channel. And then Friday, all the post-draft coverage that you can handle. We'll see everybody next time. Thanks.